Hi, so in this video we're going to take a look at all the developments that Microsoft have announced during January 2023. So we're going to dive into some Teams, some Viva, some Outlook, everything across the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and more importantly, at least I think, my take on all their announcements to try and cut through some of the marketing spin that Microsoft might have put on some of them. I'm Gavin Jones, founder and director at MeTime, where we help people save time at work to do more of the things they love. If you need help doing that, then check out some of the resources in the description below. Got new videos coming out at least every Tuesday, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified every time one of those comes out. So we've got quite a lot of announcements to go through today, and in no particular order. We're just going to start going through them and see what they're all about and see what I think of them as well. So first one we've got here is the My Activity retirement in Teams desktop and web client. I don't think anyone's going to notice that this is going, to be honest. So this is where if you now go into your activity feed, the first thing it says is feed, and you have to click this down arrow and go to My Activity, and then it shows you everything that you've done in Teams. Now, presumably they're retiring it because no one uses it, and it's not that useful, but it's useful if you want to go back to anything you've sent, which presumably you can do from search and then pick your own name anyway once this is gone. But also it's hidden, so I don't know anyone that uses that just because they don't know it's there probably. But no biggie that that one's going, but it is going in late February to mid-March. So as you'll notice with a lot of the notifications we go through, they usually end up getting delayed. So this one was first announced in August. It's still not there yet. I don't know why it takes that long just to remove a feature, but I'm not a developer, so who knows. On to the next one. So we've got a separate video about this here, about Wiki going and OneNote taking its place. So if you want to know more about that, a bit more in depth, then check out this video, and we'll just move swiftly on to the next one, which is Stream Classic is going as well. Because again, this is a bizarre change, I think, from Microsoft. For as an end user, or as I like to say, a normal person doing a normal job, you will probably not care about this at all. So Microsoft released Stream, which was a bit like YouTube for business, where you could put videos on there and have a curated place that people are like uploading videos to that service, and you can create channels and things like YouTube or Vimeo or whatever video service you can think of on the web, but just internally. That seemed quite reasonable thing to produce, I would say. And then Microsoft sort of realized, well, all those videos probably are living on their platform already, because you've got the video file that you're then uploading into Stream, which then presumably is living somewhere in the ether, but probably in Azure somewhere if they've made that Stream app, and so that you're then doubling up storage space. So presumably then they were like, well, let's just take all the videos that happen to be in SharePoint or in OneDrive and just show them back to people. And that's what Stream on SharePoint is now, which sort of loses, well, did lose some of the ability that Stream Classic had. So now every time Microsoft releases something about Stream on SharePoint, they're like, oh, we've released this new feature. So, well, it's not really a new feature. It's just one that you've brought back from one that you've just got rid of from Stream Classic. So I'm not really sure about Stream now, because it's just showing you back a list of videos, a bit like SharePoint or OneDrive. And we'll have a look at some other Stream ones, I'm sure, in some other news stories as we go through. But this one's going. You can migrate stuff over to Stream on SharePoint that you had in Stream Classic if you want, and Microsoft takes you through that, but it needs an admin to do it. So if you've put loads of stuff on there as a user, you probably need to go and speak to your IT department to go and sort that out for you. So Microsoft Teams Premium is, I guess, Microsoft trying to keep up with Zoom, as they've tried to do since the pandemic. So most of the development on Teams was just to do with video calling. It's the least bit of Teams that I'm bothered about, because it doesn't really save you time. Once you've got into video calling and you've already saved the time of driving or flying or going to visit someone in person, you've already saved that time. So any other developments in video are probably just nice to have. So it's frustrating for me that Microsoft's not developing some other things that would be really useful, such as loop pages, which we'll get onto because there's a new story about that. And they keep investing in making video better in inverted commas. So Teams Premium is announced. I'll flip onto the page to have a look through what Teams Premium is in a sec. But as you'll see, when we go onto the other blog post announcement about Teams Premium, that just goes through what's in Teams Premium as if it's new. And this announcement that's on the Admin Center is saying, well, Teams Premium is coming out, and as part of Teams Premium announcement, these features will move to Teams Premium and will still be open for everyone for a grace period of time. So these ones are already in Teams Calling now, and Microsoft are taking them out of your existing license and putting them into another license that you have to pay extra for, which I don't think many people are going to pay extra for, to be honest. I think they're probably going to lose people to Zoom because of this. So live translation of captions is in Teams already, and now it's going to go to Teams Premium. Custom together mode scenes, I don't know anyone that uses that. So it was a nice thought. It's fine if it's free, but trying to make that out as its premium feature, it's like no one uses together mode anyway, let alone doing custom together mode scenes. Timeline markers in Teams meeting recordings. Didn't know that was in there, to be honest. I don't really use that, but that's going out to Teams Premium. And virtual appointments, again in the blog post I look at, that's not very explicit that that's going, because they mention virtual appointments and then advanced virtual appointments, which sounds like it's going to go to Teams Premium and the virtual appointments are going to stay. So yeah, a bit of ambiguity there. Let's flip on to the blog post. So this one, introducing Microsoft Teams Premium, the better way to meet. The better way to meet. Interesting marketing there. So what's Teams Premium? It's saying we'll easily create meetings that meet your needs. Well, Teams already meets most people's needs, so it's got to be very niche, the amount of things that they're putting in Teams Premium. I'll go through things that aren't in there that would be useful to me. I'm interested to see if they would be useful to you as well, so let me know in the comments below when we get to that bit. So it's got like meeting guides. You can select a meeting guide like a client call, brainstorming meeting, or help desk call, and the options will already be set, reducing the time and thought process around getting the meeting right. I don't know many people that are spending that much time thinking about getting their meeting right once they're in Teams. You might do some prep and some PowerPoint and think about things you want to get over in the meeting. That's not being removed or reduced from this. It's just the tabs that are going to appear in the meeting once you go in are already set for you. So I don't know many people that are using tabs anyway, apart from people that are doing meetings for their business, so which already they might be wanting to use Zoom anyway because it's better in my opinion and easier to set up and get going, and this has not been available in Teams up until now anyway. Even so, it's like they're, that might be useful for them, but probably not for most people doing normal jobs, I would say. You can have customized meeting branding, which does look pretty cool actually. So if you're in sales, it might be nice to have some custom branding as your customers join that meeting. But if you've got a large organization, is it worth getting that for every single person? Probably not. So then if you speak to someone, if you're a big company, you've probably got connections throughout the organization that go to your customers, not just sales. So marketing, you speak to marketing the customer, supply chain, you speak to supply chain in your customer. If you're a big company, for example, are you going to pay for Teams Premium for all those just to get custom branding? I'm not sure. So then you're creating like, well, sales have got custom branding, but marketing haven't, say. So yeah, could be a difficult return on investment, I would say, to get IT to get this signed off. So focus on what matters with AI-powered meetings is pretty cool. So this one is worth getting rather than taking notes, because this is actually saving time. So intelligent recap in Teams Premium, you get the power of AI to give you some suggested action items and owners. And strangely, this is then also in Viva Sales, which again I think is a bizarre product, because it's saying it frees up time from your CRM because it's like flagging emails for you as you send them out. But every CRM product has a plugin to Outlook to do that. So it might be removing one click to say send this to my CRM. But I know HubSpot does that automatically. Salesforce, I'm presuming, does it, and I'm presuming Dynamics does it. And then all Viva Sales does is like just do that for you and show some other information that's not coming from directly from your CRM. It's sort of going through Viva Sales. But anyway, one of the other things that Viva Sales does do is do exactly this. So if you're already paying Viva Sales for your Salesforce, then you're already getting this anyway. So it's a strange overlap, I think, but cool addition. And I've showed a way that you can, admittedly, more work, at the moment get very similar results from just copying a transcript into ChatGPT. Look, check out this video next. We've got a separate video on that to go through how to do that for free at the moment, although Microsoft have just invested $10 billion into ChatGPT, so I'm sure they probably won't want to keep that free for long to get their money back. Live translation for captions is already in Teams and they're removing it, which isn't said in this blog post. Help keep confidential meetings confidential is a strange one for a layperson that's not particularly techie, because I'm assuming as a layperson that if I have a Teams meeting, it's already got a little lock icon in there and saying it's encrypted. I'm assuming that's secure. So now you're getting me to pay for something else to say, well, it's more secure. And so I know there's a lot of depth in IT, especially in security, and this one's about information protection and sensitivity labels and meetings and the text and the recording and stuff, and that helps the compliance of all the IT people. So here's onto this and then advanced virtual appointments. So again, in the blog post, it looks like the advanced bit of virtual appointments is Teams Premium and the normal appointments it isn't, which I think is going to be confusing for people that just try to do something and then realize, oh, I can't do that. So I either need to go through IT to try and get me an extra license, which if you're a normal user doing a normal job, from my experience, people are just not going to do that. It's a lot of hassle to go through to IT to get something done, rather than they might try and do a webinar because they just need to do it right now. They've already sorted it out and they're planning it. They go to do it on Teams and then find out they can't do it, or it's tricky, or they need an extra license. It's like, well, I'll just pay for a Zoom on my credit card and I'll just sort it out myself. That's how people just start to get around what IT have already put in place, unless everything's locked down, which obviously starts impacting people's jobs. And then people still will get around it. They'll just get their supplier to set the Zoom meeting up, or they'll get their marketing agency to set the thing up themselves, rather than because our company's locked down, we'll just use your one. So that's why I'm not a big fan of locking everything down. And I think Microsoft are going to lose people because of this like two-tiered sort of system of having a bit for free in your existing license and a bit that's extra. I think they'd be better saying, look, if you want to do webinars, just pay for Teams Premium, and everything to do with a webinar, including virtual appointments or whatever, is Teams Premium. And if you don't want to do webinars, that's included. That would be, I think, better solution to know whether you do or don't want to do it. So anyway, this virtual appointments is sending out text messages to remind people, which is pretty useful. Appointment management, so this is where it looks like everyone's going to have this virtual appointments app, but only the bits where there's like a little diamond premium icon is where you're going to have premium. So it looks like you can do a booking schedule for free and manage stuff, but if you want to see a queue or any analytics, then that's where you're going to need to use Teams Premium. So niche, I think. Advanced webinars, so this is what I was saying, advanced webinars are Teams Premium, but presumably you can still do webinars in Teams without Premium. And so some of these you would expect just to be in a webinar, so rather than an advanced webinar. So the registration waitlist, I can't see being that important, but presumably that's keeping it with the feature that Zoom have got, where if your meetings or your webinar's already full, you can go on a waitlist, and then as people drop, you can come on, and then you can customize the registration start and end time. So again, presumably from the blog post, that reads as if that's Teams Premium. I would expect that to be in just a webinar solution. So strange that that's split out. And then you can send automated reminder emails. So again, if you're running a webinar, I would expect that that's already in just to be able to run a webinar. People are going to get the calendar link anyway, or how many times you need to prompt someone to go and join if they've got the calendar invite. Not sure. So where it's quite useful is now they're bringing stuff that used to be in live events, which was for like 10,000 people across an organization. You could mix whether you use professional software and hardware in through Teams to make it look, like a professionally generated live video for internal communications in a large organization. And they used to have this like green room, they're calling it now. It wasn't called green room when they had live events, where you can, as the presenters, chat about stuff before the meeting, and then you're choosing what goes live, which is useful for webinars, so that would be useful. But again, it's not clear, or it's at least implied, that virtual and green room is only for advanced webinars. So webinars at the moment, in the normal Teams license, seem to be just like another meeting, apart from you get like a booking page. which is probably unneeded for anything internal. So if you're running stuff external, then you would use a webinar in Teams, but then because it's missing these features, you would probably think, well, it's not good enough, I'll use Zoom webinar. Before I forget, the main thing that Teams Premium doesn't have, or hasn't mentioned at least, is improved recording of the webinar or of the meeting, which is something that I would pay extra to do. So as you may have seen some of my other videos, any time that I'm speaking to someone else virtually and recording it, the quality is terrible. So the frame rate's terrible, the resolution's terrible, and I ended up, usually, if I remember, recording my screen because that's better quality, as well as the meeting recording from Teams, if that makes sense, and then have to match the two together. But that, flipping from one to the other is, you can tell which one's which. So if you've got a Zoom webinar or a Zoom meeting, that's all sorted for you. The quality's great. You can get individual people speaking as they're speaking. You can get a shared view, and you can get the screen that's being presented, all separate files. That I would pay for, and I'm not sure why Microsoft are not copying that from Zoom, because every time I need to do it, I'm like, well, I may as well just use Zoom because Teams is not good enough to do it. So like I say, I think you're going to lose people to Zoom by making it complicated what's in and what's out. I think saying, look, all of this solution, if you want to do anything with a webinar, that's in Premium, and you get everything that Zoom can do, including recording, and then everything that's existing in Teams calling as what's in there. But now they're going to remove things that's what's in there now and put it into Premium, and then just mix like some of the features about. So Teams Premium, bizarre choices, I think, from Microsoft. But let me know what you think. Do you like Teams Premium? What are you going to use about it? Let me know in the comments below. So following on to Microsoft Stream on SharePoint, you can now create, view, and share playlists, which again, Microsoft are introducing as something new. But this is what you could do in Stream Classic, and now they're just doing it, now it's on Stream SharePoint. And because the solution architecture is different, they've then had to put this through a Microsoft list, which isn't that it's not useful, but then now you're going to end up with two different Microsoft apps, effectively, just to create the thing that was in one that you've got rid of. So you can organize videos in OneDrive and SharePoint into playlists for easier consumption and distribution. I wouldn't recommend doing that from OneDrive, because then if the person leaves, at some point those videos are going to go, unless IT migrate it into somewhere else, and you've got to recreate the playlist and everything else. So they keep mentioning OneDrive and SharePoint, but please just use SharePoint if you're going to share any playlists that go around the organization. And yeah, you can create this from either into Stream or in lists or via SharePoint. It says it allows it creation from flows across Office, SharePoint, and lists. So I'm not sure what they're referencing in terms of Office, because Office used to be Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You can't do this from there. And then Office.com is changing to Microsoft 365. So I'm not sure what they're referencing when they say Office. But from SharePoint or lists or from Stream, you can create this playlist, and then presumably, because it's in a list, you can then add that list to another SharePoint page. So you can have a page that's about a subject with like text and video, text and pictures, and then have another like, oh, if you want to find out more, you can show that playlist there. So some of these looks pretty cool, I think, the way that they've implemented it. Just looks like, any sort of modern player, where you can play it in line and see all the other videos in the playlist from there. So if that's what shows through when you embed it into a SharePoint page, then that'd be quite cool, but we'll have to see when it comes out. So Loop components is a big frustration for me. So Loop, when Microsoft announced it, I think, if I'm right, from without looking, 2 years ago now, it showed Loop pages, but then happened to have some components that you could update wherever you're working. So the page kept everything together, and then the components could go into Teams, or could go into Outlook, or could go anywhere, across any Microsoft product, that would stay in sync and be live wherever you looked at them. That's quite a cool concept. How it's been implemented to date is that Microsoft are focusing on these Loop components, the bits that get updated anywhere. So you don't have one place to go back and see all of those components at the moment, because Loop Pages isn't out. And so the only places you can do Loop components at the moment is Teams chat. Not in Teams channels, just in chat. And if you follow anything of my advice, it's like, don't do your main work in chat. That's the worst place you can put it, because you're going to lose stuff. It needs to be in a team structure, in a channel, and anything to do with that subject of work should go in that channel. But if you're using loop components, one, you can't put it in a channel because that doesn't exist yet. And then now Microsoft are next releasing loop components going into Outlook, which is like we're trying to make people change away from using email and get them into using Teams properly, because you can make a meaningful difference in people's lives by saving them a huge amount of time. If you want to know more about that, check out our free training to go through my approach and hopefully convince you that that's the right thing to do. This goes against that. So we're now splitting people back into Outlook to just go and update a loop component. Unless you save that email somewhere, you're then going to lose that loop component, because at the moment it lives in someone's OneDrive, and without that link or without that view, you can't go back and see that if someone shared it with you. If you're the one that shared it, you can go into your OneDrive and click the link, and it will open what is presumably going to be the loop page, which isn't out yet, but you can't add anything else to that page. It just shows you that one component. So very confusing for end users, and I don't know anyone that's using loop components right now. So if we scroll down, you can add a component from bulleted list, but you can put a bulleted list in text, so it's just one that you want to collaborate on a bulleted list. You can do a checklist, but again, it's one that is shared, so you can do a checklist. So you can do bulleted list, checklist, numbered list, a paragraph. Anyway, you're just going to type it out. So it's just bizarre that it's just unfathomable to me that Microsoft have focused on this component bit. I get that that's the most technically difficult bit to do, but it's completely unuseful to normal people doing a normal job, and it's really difficult to explain why you would use this, because even I don't know why you would use loop components right now. When Loop comes out as a full product, that is going to be game changing, which is why I'm really excited, and why I'm really frustrated that Microsoft seem to be messing it up as they introduce this to people, and they're taking a really long time to do it. So I think, in my humble opinion, Microsoft would have been better off just copying Notion, borrowing concepts from Notion, producing loop pages, which would be useful on its own, and the loop app, and then work to like try and say, well, how's it going to get shared around different apps? That's like a nice little add-on that only Microsoft could do. Whereas if you wanted to do anything right now that Notion can do, Loop can't do any of that. You need to go into Notion. And also, it's then a shared OneNote in a team is co-authorable. A shared Word document is co-authorable. So your bulleted list, the checklist, the number list, the paragraph, a table even, Q&As, it's just, no one's going to use that. So yeah, you'd have to open up that document. So say it was a Word document, you could share a link on email. So if this was Loop components in Outlook, you could share the link to that Word document, someone would open it, and then everything's co-authorable in there. So Loop components isn't fixing that, it's just making it visible right on the front of it. And same with OneNote. If you're making notes and you want a bulleted list, anyone can sort of co-author that list anyway. So just have that component in either a Teams chat, which you're going to lose because it's going to go off the top of the screen, or in Outlook, which you're going to lose because there's going to be loads of emails there, to try and get back to the thing that you're working on, that you want to collaborate on. It seems bizarre to like split, it's now into stuff that is going to get lost. You can't put it in a Teams channel, which in my opinion is the place that you should be doing work collaboration, and Loop components is by definition to collaborate on something together. And then final bit of my rant is then they've got a Loop component task list. So we're only just getting people into using Planner effectively. And then we've got another task list that's then in a Loop component. It's like, well, is the task list in Loop components going through to Planner? No. It's like, well, where does it live? It's just a different way of losing tasks. So in the old days, previously people used to put tasks and minutes of meetings in an email, or tasks in an Excel spreadsheet, and email it around. And the downside of that is, well, yeah, they're recorded at least, but you're relying on everyone to go back into that spreadsheet on the email to go and find out what their action is. So usually you rock up to the next meeting, no one's done the actions, and you're just running down a spreadsheet of no one doing any actions because you haven't followed them up and they're lost. Planner fixes all that, because one, it's shared, it's visible to everybody. people get chased up on their actions automatically, and you don't need to do any of that. So, and you can see when it's done. A task list in a loop component isn't fixing any of that. It's going back to the bad things that we used to do before. It's just living an email, that loop component, and you need to go and find that email to go and do it. You can assign people, but they don't get notified. It's just a mess. So ran over on loop. Next one, suggested replies in Teams desktop. This one just made me giggle because it's an example of where either Microsoft announce things 2 years in advance and then don't do any development or any useful development on it, like we just saw on loop, or things just come out and they haven't even communicated it. So they're saying, we apologise for not informing you about this change prior to being released. Admittedly, it's a small development. So this is just where, if you ever used iMessage or WhatsApp, you might get some suggestions of what you want to reply as you're typing across the top, or on LinkedIn. So if you get a LinkedIn message, there might be some 3 options. You can just click that, yeah, thanks, not interested button, or whatever you might want to reply. And this has been in Teams on mobile, and now it's coming into Teams desktop. So not a biggie that they didn't let anyone know, but just found it funny that it just comes out and seemingly no one at Microsoft know that they've put that in the code. PowerPoint Live in Teams, you can now magnify the slide, so that's useful for sort of zooming in. And if you're using like webinar products, that might be useful to go and share your screen, and you might be used to doing that. Now you can do that in PowerPoint Live through Teams, and it's got some ways about how to do that. Introduction of organizational insights into Microsoft Viva Digest email. So again, Microsoft Viva Insights frustrates me because that is an amazing product. So Microsoft Workplace Analytics, as it used to be called, is now in Viva Insights, and that's the bit where someone relatively central in the organization can pull all of the data across the whole organization, anonymized, so meetings and emails, and get a lot of depth because you know who the meeting's with, you know who the email's with. Again, all anonymized, but you can look at the domain of where it's going to. So you can see if you're having a meeting with a customer versus an internal meeting, or you can see how much time we're spending with this customer versus another customer. Really, really good, really, really useful, and relatively cheap. So I think this is the best kept secret that Microsoft have. I think everyone should just get Viva Insights and get some really good data about how to improve your organization. Viva then also has a digest email, and again, I think we used to have My Analytics, which was your own data, and Workplace Analytics, which was workplace data. That made sense to me. They've now rebadged everything as Viva Insights, and you have to pay for one versus the other. So Viva Insights, your personal stuff, is included for free, and then Viva Insights for organizational stuff is you have to pay for. So it's saying if you've got the premium Viva Insights license, then for managers where this is turned on, then you'll get after-hours collaboration, meeting culture, and manager one-to-one time included in your digest email, so seeing how your team's working. Which isn't that it's not useful, but each manager's sort of looking at that themselves, might just discard it. I think that what the content and the style of the email has gotten worse since they rebadged it as Viva versus My Analytics. That's just my own opinion. I think it was a lot clearer the way it was before. And yeah, as they've sort of worked through rebranding Viva Insights and My Analytics, there was a bit where you could jump out into one and it had a different view and it looked jarring. She's like, well, I thought I was clicking through Viva Insights, now it jumped into My Analytics. I don't know what the difference is. Now they've sort of consolidated that, but then taken away some of the functionality. So again, might be a way of Microsoft making an additional license. But this one was never in there, so admittedly, you could never see stuff for your people without an additional license anyway. And yeah, if it's coming out, then that's cool. But yeah, wish Microsoft to do more on Viva Insight, at least push it more. So Microsoft Lists now gets a calendar week layout. So if you're using a list with dates in, then you can now choose between a month layout or a work layout when you're going to your calendar. So very simple addition and seems fine. Video filters in Teams meetings. So again, Microsoft really putting a lot of development into Teams meetings where just don't care. Do not care about this one iota. Allow participants to augment their video stream with visual effects such as frames and styles. These filters are built on Teams platform infrastructure provided by Microsoft first and third-party partners, apps, as displayed as a collection of filters. So I guess during the pandemic, then people were messing about with filters a bit to try and jazz up their lives, because we could basically not do anything apart from go on Zoom and Teams calls. I think this is why do you want to do this now? So it's like putting a fancy sticker in front of your face, like a filter. I'm not sure you want to do that at work. You might have like a branded one potentially that you might be able to upload, but it seems like a waste of time. Let me know if you disagree in the comments below. New home experience for Viva Connections desktop. So again, Viva is an odd thing for Microsoft to brand everything as Viva, and I can only assume they're doing it because they think that you can get money from branding stuff as Viva versus branding as Microsoft 365, which we'd assume is in your license. So Viva Connections, most simply, is where you can see your company intranet in the Teams sidebar, like so. So you can rebrand this so it doesn't say Viva Connections. You can change the icon, you can change the wording, but the gist is that you can see your company intranet here, and you can see organization-wide navigation when you click it to pop it out. But it's basically the intranet in Teams, just so you can get quick access to it. As part of then Viva Connections, they also introduced this dashboard and Viva Connections feed, which at least the feed overlaps with some other feeds you can get in SharePoint, where you can just show people stuff that they've not seen, or trending news or stuff like that. And as a person that's putting that web part into a SharePoint page, you don't know what's going to appear in there. It's just up to Microsoft AI to display what's in there. Whereas at least some of the other web parts, you can say, well, I want to see videos, I want to show pages back to people. And then also this dashboard. So you can create cards that pop up in the dashboard, and most of them are useless out of the box, and you need some code to go and create ones that are useful. So all the ones that look cool on the Viva Connections website, they just don't do anything by default. If you want like a Power BI chart and stuff that looks cool, you need to go and code that card. So I would assume that 99% of organizations are not using that. So as a general rule of thumb, if IT need to do something, it's not going to happen. And if someone in the business can do it, it usually is going to happen. So I'd assume that the dashboard is not well used, but I might be wrong. Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure we'll get a deluge of comments saying that it's used and it's useful, but this is just my opinion. So the new home experience for Viva Connections desktop. So as part of the Viva Connections, those little card things, when you looked at Viva Connections, which is in the desktop app, just seeing your company intranet through Teams, when you went on the Teams app on mobile, when you clicked on Viva Connections, you just saw a feed of those cards, which is jarring, isn't it? It's like one is the intranet and the other one's like this cards thing. So they're saying this new home experience for Viva Connections desktop serves as a new home experience option that centers essential job tasks, personalized content, easy to access other Viva experience, and better aligns with the mobile experience. So it's basically moving from seeing the intranet to seeing these card things, which I don't think is useful. So yeah, I'm not sure. If you've already got Viva Connections, then you need to use PowerShell to flip between one and the other. Again, little aside, it really annoys me that Microsoft just can't make a button. If something's just turning on or off, you need to go and use PowerShell to put a command in just to turn it on or off, rather than just going into Admin Center and clicking on or off. Surely it's not that much more difficult just to create a UI button to make that work, rather than need to go to PowerShell. But PowerShell ran over. Yeah, I'm not sure about this at all. I don't think the card's useful. I don't think you want to use that as desktop experience. It's much more useful to have a curated intranet that you get access to from Teams, and that shouldn't be called Viva at all. It should just be like, I'm seeing my intranet in Teams. It's not Viva Connections, it's nothing. I'm presuming that these cards will die a slow death and get removed at some point, but that's just my prediction. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. So, I mean, I haven't done a CV or a resume in quite a while. Last time I did one, I think I probably looked at some Word templates. I vaguely remember there might be a resume assistant in Word where it was pulling stuff from LinkedIn. Presumably everyone else's memory of this is as bad as mine, so that's why Microsoft are getting rid of it. But yeah, basically resume assistant's going, you'll be no longer able to pull stuff in from LinkedIn to fill in your resume, but the templates are going to stay there anyway. So the Microsoft 365 Microsoft feed apparently provides users with a mix of relevant content from across Microsoft 365 that helps users discover and learn about people and interests relevant at work. The feed is personal to users, will show users content based on what's likely to be most relevant to a current user at any given time. Basically, if you go into Microsoft365.com, previously Office.com, which still got the old branding on their screenshot, it's going to pop up stuff that it thinks you might want to work on, which is good. So the one at the moment, which I'm not sure if it's got a picture of the one at the moment, is pretty useless because the cards, it shows you some stuff that you've worked on, shows you some stuff that other people worked on, but the cards are so big, you just can't fit a lot of stuff on the screen at the same time. Whereas this looks like, admittedly, this one looks like a high resolution, like a big monitor with the browser windows scrolled right down. So usually I would imagine people would cut off about there. So maybe you still can't see a lot of info once it comes out. But it seems a lot better. So it's coming up with like meetings. Someone updated this PowerPoint file and it's related to, here's what it thinks it's related to you, and some messages that it's pulling out. So yeah, good development, I think. However, I don't know anyone that uses Office.com. I don't know anyone that uses Microsoft365.com. I use it because I work with other clients, and the easiest way for me to log on to their system rather than logging out of Teams on my Teams desktop is to go through the web browser. And usually if I'm working on SharePoint or Planner or Teams, I just come into Office.com because it's the easiest thing to type in, log into their area, or set up a separate profile in Chrome, because Edge just tends to break, to be honest. So it was using Chrome, so I just logged in straight away, and it comes into the Microsoft, comes into Office.com, and then I can get quick access to this little waffle menu thing. If you're in an organization already and your intranet's in SharePoint, then you'd probably just go into that and click on the waffle menu, or you're going to use the individual desktop apps. I don't know anybody that goes through Office.com unless they're a contractor or a consultant. So it's useful for me, but I'm not sure it's going to be most useful for everyone. It'd be really useful if this feed showed up in Teams. That would be useful. It'd be useful if that feed showed up in Outlook. That would be useful. But to have it in Office.com seems like a lot of development for not a lot of result. Schedule send for Teams chat. This I'm going to have a little rant on. So this is where you can type a message, and then rather than sending it straight away, you can schedule it so that it gets sent later. So one, it's only in Teams chat and not in a Teams channel, so we shouldn't be using Teams chat for work anyway. We should be using the Teams channel. Anything that's really private, we should be using Teams chat, like I need to go to the doctor, so I'm going to be late in today, doesn't need to go into the Teams channel, because that's not work, it's just stuff between you and your manager probably. Why would you want to send it later? So I know you can do it in Outlook, you can probably do it in lots of other apps. I think this is where the world's gone mad, because everyone wants everyone else to change around them rather than them changing. So what is the difference between me logging on at midnight and seeing some emails that were sent earlier in the day versus my manager sending me an email at midnight? I've still chosen to see that message. I could have turned off notifications for a specific app or for my entire apps. I am assuming that my manager wants something urgently then when he's not, and I'm opening myself up to receive information when I don't want to see it. So that's my fault, not the person that's sending it's fault. And on the flip side, hybrid work, flexible work, people working around the clock and being global, is now you're expecting the sender to guess when's best for someone else to receive it when they might be wrong. So if I've been off all day because I'm sitting with my ill toddler and I can't get him into nursery, I want to catch up on work. So I'm working till midnight and I want to do that. So anything that's coming through, I want to do it now because I want to catch up. So if my manager's then saying he's working as well, maybe he's got a similar situation, you think, oh, I don't want to bother Gav, so I'm going to send it later, and I'm going to send it so it comes in the morning. It's like, well, I know that he's going to be ill again tomorrow. I'm going to miss that. I want to do it right now. So he's guessing and probably guessing wrong. And it's just bizarre. So you should just have a culture of saying, look, I'm going to send you stuff whenever I want to send it. And whenever you choose to receive it is up to you. Don't assume that I want something urgently if I sent it to you late at night and you're not working, because it is by definition not urgent. If the building was on fire, you would not send a Teams chat message. You would just run around screaming the building's on fire or phone someone. It cannot be urgent. So to then assume that it's urgent and then say, well, I need to make it less urgent by sending it in the future, I think is just ridiculous. But if other people want to do that, then I guess it's now available. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Interested to hear your views on that one. So this one says new service plans for Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Viva SKUs. And it says, as previously announced, we're releasing our new experiences for Viva Engage and Answers in Microsoft Viva in early 2023. We're now assigning the new service plans to the corresponding SKUs to get ready for the release. So Viva Engage is another bizarre marketing thing from Microsoft, where they've taken a bit of Yammer and then called it Viva Engage. So that if you look at Yammer through the web, it's Yammer. If you look at Yammer through, I think, a tab, that might be Yammer, or they might rename that. But if you look at Yammer through the sidebar app of Teams, that's now Viva Engage, but it still just shows you Yammer. So there's a mixed up of stuff there. There's then like stories that they made and storylines, again, which are in Yammer, but they're calling Viva Engage. So I think it's just very confusing. I can't see anyone really going full on into Viva Engage. Again, if you disagree, let me know in the comments below. So this service plan is intended to support the currently available basic features in Viva Engage, currently available storylines, communities, etc. To ensure continued Yammer experience, so it's got flipped to Yammer. It's just not about Viva Engage. To ensure continued Yammer experience, this service plan will also enable Yammer services. So if you're on the normal licenses, so most people are usually on E3 if you're an enterprise, and most people on Business Premium if you're a small, medium-sized business. So Viva Engage communities and communication, if you're an existing Microsoft Viva Suite customer, so that's everything that Microsoft badge as Viva, you can pay for and get it all in one bundle, may see the service plan available. This service plan will be used to provision the new Viva Engage features, Leadership Corner, campaigns, Ask Me Anything, etc. in early 2023. So again, looks like they're rebadging stuff as Viva just so they can then charge an additional license for it. I've may have missed it, but I've not seen anything about Leadership Corner campaigns and Ask Me Anything. Seems like that's stuff that you can already do in Yammer, because you can do an Ask Me Anything, you just have like one page that says Ask Me Anything. We used to do it in my old corporate job, and anyone can ask a question and everything's kept together in the thread, and it's nice because you don't need to use Teams and you can get it across, you know, a very broad, big enterprise organization without much work, without thinking about all of the limits and stuff that you might have in a team, which is more for like actually collaborating to do your job. In small and medium-sized businesses, Yammer and Viva Engage just confuses things because you can do most of what you want to do in Teams anyway. So then why are you asking someone to jump out into a separate service where you're going to lose stuff versus just keeping it in Teams? And then Viva Engage Knowledge, if you're an existing Viva Suite or Viva Topics customer, you may see the service plan available. Service plan will be used to provision new answers in Microsoft Viva experiences in early 2023. So Viva Topics, again, on the face of it, it's quite useful. And if you buy Viva Topics, then again, Microsoft announced ages ago that you'd be able to see topics wherever you can, work. But then it was quite delayed coming out in Teams. Looks like it's delayed coming out in Yammer, and now they're calling it Viva Engage Knowledge, which is across Viva Topics and Yammer. It's just very confusing and seems like they're removing stuff. And again, you can go through this and have a look at the Q&A. If you slow the video down, if I have a scroll down, if you spot anything that is of interest, then pause the video and go and have a read of it. But just as a quick aside, Microsoft also in Viva Engage, which is not mentioned here, as well as storylines, which is just seeing your own feed of information that doesn't live in a Viva community, I think as they're called now, which I think's strange because it's just like updating stuff that's just going into a random feed that may or may not be shown to other people, a bit like Facebook. Whereas for work, it makes sense to have like you're putting stuff to do with this subject here. Viva Stories is then stealing like Instagram stories and Snapchat stories and putting it into Yammer, or now Viva Engage, as they may want to call it. Presumably, it'd be a lot easier if they just rebadged Yammer as Viva Engage. And I don't know if that's what they've got planned, but they haven't got it planned right now because Yammer's still Yammer, and Viva Engage is like a blancmange of it's showing Yammer from something in Teams. Bizarre. But anyway, Stories is coming to Yammer, which is like, I just don't understand why Microsoft think this is a good idea. So they've already had Stories in LinkedIn and got rid of it, presumably because not a lot of people use Stories. And so if people aren't willing to use Stories on LinkedIn, which is where they can sort of promote themselves and, it's going out into the ether and people can see it, I don't understand why they think people are going to use Stories at work, like just internal to work. So usually people are a bit more open in their personal lives than they are at work. I can't see Stories being used. And also the whole point of a story is that it disappears after 24 hours. If you're creating something for work, then why would you want it to disappear? If you're doing a video, and the best place for that is to put it into SharePoint, which is now Stream on SharePoint, because Stream sucks up anything that's in SharePoint anyway, so making itself already obsolete. So you put it into SharePoint and then put it into a page, and then that page lives forever, and it will get recommended to people based on the content of that page, and it'll go on your internet and show up in Teams. And then if you do it the same thing in a story, that just disappears and is lost forever, and you don't know if anyone's going to see it. You can't direct, it's on Yammer. I think it's dead in the water before it starts, but let me know what you think in the comments below. So Files on Demand, settings in Windows. So this is the OneDrive Sync app that people get confused about. If you want to know more about Sync, then watch this video here. It's quite an old one, and Microsoft are getting rid of the Sync button and replacing it with Add Shortcut to OneDrive, because technically it's better. I think they need to do something with that terminology before they release it, but hopefully they'll sort that out. This one is similar, where they're just changing the name of what it's called. So previously a toggle was shown to allow users to opt out of Files on Demand. After this change, users who have Files on Demand enabled will no longer see that toggle. Instead, users will see two buttons: download files as you open them, or download all files now. So Files on Demand is just downloading files as you open them, and not having Files on Demand is having all the files on your machine as well as in the cloud that stay in sync. So nice little terminology change there. Carrying on, private drafts for SharePoint pages and news is very useful. So you can create a page that's not visible to anyone else apart from the page author. If you've got a communication site as your total company intranet, it's probably operating that way already, because you've probably got a cut down number of people in the organization that can publish news anyway. So no one else can see stuff until it's published. They can't see things until it's ready. This is really useful. So the architecture I like to do is have one team, or one main large team for the entire organization, usually if it's an SMB, or at least some bigger chunks of teams for an enterprise level customer, and allow everybody in that team to create any pages they want and any news to really get the community aspect going and get information delivered in the medium that we usually would consume in our personal lives, such as video, text, pictures, just like a web page. And so in here it's useful because everyone's got access to it, as soon as you create a page, it starts suggesting that page to people. Like, you can see it's being worked on, and actually because it's like a news post, you actually don't want people to see it until it's published, because you just want to work on it right now. So this one's useful for that. Again, like I say, if you've got a total company intranet, then usually, like, say, HR or some comms people have got access to publish stuff, and no one else can see anything in draft anyway. So useful for my architecture. I'm not sure how many people follow that right now, though. So I'd be interested to hear your views. Windows and mobile app changes from Office to Microsoft 365. So this is just the Office.com and the Office app are going to Microsoft 365.com and the Microsoft 365 app. Again, don't know many people that use those, so let me know if you do. Modern commenting experience coming to Whiteboard. So here's where you can have comments put onto Whiteboard, same sort of little dialog box that you'll get in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Lists, very similar. So now you can do the same thing in Whiteboard as well, which is useful that they're all aligned. I think that it's strange that Microsoft came out with commenting where the notification, if you mention someone, it goes into their email, when we've just got Teams out and we're trying to get people to use Teams and adopt Teams and not use email. it's strange that the notification doesn't go into Teams for me. Not sure why Microsoft made that decision. Be interested to know though. So yeah, good that it's got it, but still the notification goes into email, which is suboptimal. So if you followed the wiki being gone, if you check out this video here, then wasn't sure in that announcement if they were going to have some parity going on with wiki with OneNote, because OneNote's replacing it. And this one is starting to get there. So introducing OneNote Viewer in Teams mobile apps. If you're in Teams and you now can't use wiki because it's going, then at least this allows you to view the OneNote notebook right in the Teams mobile app. And then if you want to edit it, it jumps you out to the standalone OneNote mobile app, which is actually better because in wiki, you could only view the wiki in the Teams app and you couldn't edit it until you got back onto web or desktop. So that is better, at least they're sorting it out. As an aside, it wasn't in the previous video or in their announcement, but that you can now chat alongside a page in OneNote through Teams, which is what Wiki used to do, which is great. Outlook reactions to email messages. So again, this has been in the Outlook web app for a bit, and now they're releasing it for iOS, Mac, Windows, Android, where you can do a little emoji next to the message rather than replying a message. So if you did that at the moment and look through the Office on the web, then you just see like a little thumbs up against your message or get a little notification. If you weren't, I think I'm right in saying that the other person got an email back anyway saying, here's another email that Gav's clicked a thumbs up, which is then, not any benefit of just sending another email saying, oh, thanks or something, which you don't want to do because you're clogging up someone else's inbox. So yeah, kind of useful. And so you can see a quick view of all the reactions and their emails have elicited from other people. Interested to see if that goes external. So again, in my architecture, I like to say Teams is for internal stuff and emails for external stuff. Be interested to see if these work across external and internal. New activity column in OneDrive, so my files list view. So a new activity column in OneDrive, my files. The goal of this feature is to help users stay up to date with the files they're working on with others by surfacing relevant activity information. So not that it's not useful, however, if you're working with someone else, I would recommend not having it in your OneDrive. It should be in SharePoint somewhere, because that's what SharePoint's for. If it's a file that you don't want to put into, you haven't got a team or something set up for it, then you probably need to sort out the architecture so you do have somewhere to do that. And if you're doing it externally, then OneDrive can be useful for that if you're just doing a one-to-one sort of external relationship, and then you probably know which files you're working on anyway. So again, something that are nice to have in my opinion, but lots of stuff that needs to be sorted that isn't, still gets delayed. Additional filters in approvals. So as I just mentioned to a recent client, well, they were interested in approvals. Approvals out of the box doesn't do much that's useful in my opinion, because usually you want an approval flow to replace just people sending emails around, but that emails trail at least is auditable and you can forward it on and someone else could keep it. And the approvals app, if you don't do anything with Power Automate or record that information anywhere, yes, IT admin can probably get that audit trail somewhere, but like I say, if most normal people do normal jobs, going to have to go to their IT department or their external IT provider is a suboptimal experience, and they want to try and just keep everything together themselves. And so the approvals app isn't great. It is good though if you use Power Automate with it, because then it's quite a nice way to have a list of stuff for the approver that they can just quickly go through and then keep the information or the audit trail stored somewhere that the business can receive it a bit easier. And this is just saying that they're having some filters for the approver to sort of filter, what's gone on. So someone, if they've got 100 approvals, and then someone appears at their desk and says, oh, you've not done my approval, they can quickly filter and look at the approval title or requested or custom approvals columns to go and find that approval and approve it. Cloud signatures coming to Outlook. This is a great feature that I'm surprised they've not done before, where if you've created a signature, so I've got to create a signature on my Outlook desktop. If I go to Outlook on the web, I can't use that signature. It's not there. It's not shown anywhere. I have to go back into my Outlook desktop to go and send that email with a signature on. So this is just having a signature that goes across every place that you're going to send the email from. So if we're going on my mobile, the signature will be there. If we're on the web, the signature will be there. If we're on desktop, the signature will be there. So that's good. OneDrive Home, new landing experience. So this is different than the feed and just shows you a list of your most recent files, I think, and you can filter them by whether it's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or PDF as you go. On Teams, you can automatically lower the user's raised hand after they're speaking, so the hands don't stay up all the time, which might be useful, but not amazingly so. You've got new SharePoint site templates, which I never use a template, but SharePoint Lookbook is useful if you never had a look at that. You can have a look at SharePoint Lookbook and see what is possible with things straight out of the box of SharePoint, and then go and recreate them yourself. So that's quite useful. Never use templates. This one's saying it's got 3 new templates for HR, showcase events, and a template powered by Microsoft Syntex to do contract management, which might be useful. Although if you don't know the licensing about Microsoft Syntex, then you might end up spending a bit more money than you thought, or getting so far through that and then realizing that you have to pay, and then the whole thing gets kiboshed. So it'd be interesting to see what that does out the box for free with some established models. So that would be useful, because removing the barrier to entry to go and get Syntex started. Syntex is where you can scan like invoices coming in, and it will find the right invoice number and show it back to you. And so for me, I use Xero, and Xero does that for me as part of my subscription anyway. And usually people are not going to use Microsoft 365 for core business processes like that. So again, I can't see a massive use case for Syntex, where you probably want your invoices going into an ERP system. And if Syntex then works with Dynamics, I guess that makes sense. But to have Syntex to go into Microsoft 365 probably might be like a stopgap solution, maybe, or something a bit cheaper than getting people to type stuff into a legacy ERP or somewhere to hold your invoices or purchase orders or whatever. Again, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you use Microsoft Syntex or not, or do you want to know more? Users' ability to delete chats. So you can always hide a chat in Teams at the moment, but you couldn't ever delete it. And then same thing, this permanently deletes chat only for the user. Other people in the chat and conversation history are not impacted. So anything you send over Teams, you should assume is going through your organization, and your organization can get it back at any time. During the pandemic, I had lots of questions on YouTube about students saying, I've sent this email, can my teacher see it? It's like, they're probably not going to see it. But if it's really bad, then someone in the organization probably could get it back. So it needs to go through an IT admin and use e-discovery. And I don't think this is removing that. So you'll still be able to, it'll still show up in e-discovery, but it just removes it from your view. So I'm not really sure what it's doing versus just hiding it, and admin needs to turn this on or off anyway. So yeah, not really sure about that one. Teams, mention everyone in a chat. One, bizarre that they keep developing chat, because we're trying to reduce the amount of chat usually in a client I work with, and use more Teams. And it's saying, similar to how users mention individuals in chat, users will now have the option for everyone within the options for mentions. After typing @ users will see the same people results they see today, but a new option, everyone, will be available. So in a chat though, the default is that anyone that's not muted that chat is going to get notified about every single message in that chat. So typing @ does like a little highlight and makes sure that they get mentioned if they've turned off notifications, but everyone by default is getting pinged anyway. So this is like fixing something that is caused by the functionality. So everyone gets pinged by default. Few people get annoyed with the group chat, they mute it because it's no longer relevant to them, and then now they've had to build in something else that then re-notifies everybody. Rather than, a better solution, in my humble opinion, would have been if they'd replicated threaded conversations from Teams channels into chat, because that's the golden feature that Teams has got that no other app has got as good, is threaded conversations. And so they've left chat as like just an iMessage or a WhatsApp where you're just replying and everyone's getting pinged in a group chat and everyone gets annoyed, rather than just having threaded chat, and by default it's not pinging everybody, and if you want to opt in you do an @ mention. That would make more sense to me. So not a big fan of that one. Custom download location for files in Teams might be useful if you're on Windows, but that's only because Windows doesn't have as good a downloads folder as a Mac. So it'd be better if Microsoft fixed Windows to just copy what the Mac does for downloads and just keep it in your dock and just, have a little slide pop-up thing. You'll see your recent files. The only reason people lose things in downloads in Windows is because you have to go to the File Explorer and then go to the Downloads folder. So might be useful for you. Again, we probably don't want people downloading stuff from Teams anyway. We want people to be using the live file, the one live version of the file. Most of the times I get involved with organizations is because people have got stuff everywhere. They're getting lost in different copies. Sometimes you need to download just because Teams won't open the file. So again, it'd be more useful if Microsoft fixed being able to open files in their proper app from Teams, rather than saying, oh, we're forcing you to download it to create another copy. So like Adobe file is a good example where you might, or a CAD file or something, you can't open it from Teams. It just says, oh, we can't open this. Do you want to download it? And it's like, yeah, I'll download it. You download it, you're creating another version. So you've got the downloaded version and the one that's in Teams, rather than just opening the desktop app associated with that file from Teams. That would be a better solution for me. But if you do want to open it in a different place, you can now do that in Teams. Meeting category trends and details in the Viva Insights app in Teams and in the digest email. This only works if you categorize your meetings. So this is going to Outlook and clicking the category icon. And by default, I think it was like red, green, blue, but you can rename them. And I think that Viva Insights is picking that up and then showing it back to you, just so you can see, like, oh, you could have like customer meeting, internal meeting, whatever you want to have the categories of, and it's showing that back to you. I think it's more useful if Viva Insights did that for you. So you, as an organization, upload, here's all the domain names of my customers, and then the Viva Insights said, oh, here's how much time you're spending with customers based on that, rather than you self-categorizing meetings, which you may probably forget to do, or people just are not using it right now anyway. And then, some of these graphs, I mean, what insight you're getting from this graph, I don't know. It's just all over the place, isn't it? It'd be much more useful with a little pie chart or something. This one looks good, but again, you're picking what these are, and not going to be the same as someone else, and then you can't aggregate it. It'd be useful if it was like done top down, pushed out to you, so you can see the data, and the person that's central can see that data as well. Outlook on the web. So I find myself using Outlook on the web more and more, just because it seems like Microsoft keep developing that ahead of every other app. And I'm sure Microsoft announced at one point that they're going to have one Outlook, which seems a long time coming, just to have one Outlook, whether you're using the web or the desktop app or your mobile, just all the same features would be useful. And this one's just saying it's relocating some of the things appear, which is useful because like stuff that's on the top in the desktop app is at the bottom on the web, and there's no reason for that. So just pick one and just make it all the same. That seems to make sense to me. Meeting recap on Outlook on the web, again, not in the desktop app, but just Outlook on the web, is currently supports meeting schedule in Microsoft Teams with the following limitations. So let's have a look at what it does first. It allows meeting participants to quickly access meeting content, such as meeting recording, easily from the calendar event. So rather than just going into a Teams chat, presumably if it's scheduled from Outlook, it also goes back into the Outlook meeting invite, which is where a normal person would have expected it to be anyway, rather than Teams chat. Because I'm not having a chat, I'm having a meeting. So this one's a good one, good development, I think. Assuming you can get the same thing from the meeting in the Teams calendar. If they haven't done that, then that seems silly to only do on Outlook in the web and not in Teams, because the meeting is in Teams and Teams have got a calendar. And if you've only then got to go back into Outlook, not into Outlook desktop, but to Outlook on the web to go into your meeting invite to go into there, seems like they could have simplified that initial implementation. Microsoft Viva praise highlights in profile card. So when someone hovers over your card, they can see if you've got praise. I'm not sure that, usually people getting praise shy about getting it, especially in the UK. Not sure that's a massive development, but maybe nice to do. Again, it's bizarre. I think it's bizarre how Microsoft prioritized some of these things. Like, why have they chosen to work on that versus just like all guns blazing on getting Microsoft Loop sorted 2 years late, and it's going to be great, if they don't mess it up, and instead they're putting Teams praise, which presumably is not that well used, into a card when you hover over someone's little head icon. Context IQ, again, I'm sure this was announced a while ago, and I tried it a bit over the intervening time, and it says we apologise for the delay. Now proceeding with the rollout of this feature. Seems like whenever they produce a blog post, it's like it's written as if it's there right now. It doesn't say when it's coming out, and then you have to like wait for it to roll out. For quite a while, I've been able to do at someone in a email, so that's quite useful just to bring their attention to where they're highlighted, and Outlook then showed you a different icon in your inbox to say, well, you've been mentioned in this one. Then there's development to say, well, I could mention from the body of the email, and they'll get added into the to box, which was useful because as you're typing, you just type at blah blah blah, and it'll add someone into that email, which I've used and has been useful. And then this one is now, so you can use the @key to allow them to search for, filter, and insert entities that exist across their Microsoft 365 account. So, and it's going to proactively assist users by suggesting relevant content based on the context of your message. So if you're writing about a specific document and then you want to insert that document, just type at, and it's going to probably suggest that document that you want to attach, or it knows that you're working on that presentation for someone and it'll go and attach that for you, and hoping that it does a link rather than attach the document, which it usually does in Outlook on the web. External file request in SharePoint. So this one's quite useful. You have been able to do this in OneDrive for a bit, where you can, like, rather than sharing the folder, you can request that they put files into that folder. So they can't see anything in that folder. You're just saying upload your file here, and it'll go into that folder. They can't see anything else in there. They can't edit or delete it once it's in there, but they can put it in there. So a bit like replacement for WeTransfer, which is pretty good. You can now do the same thing in SharePoint document library. So you can use a folder and say, just put stuff in here. You can't see anything else in there. That's quite a good use case for a few businesses, I think. And then going back to Yammer and Viva Engage, availability of Viva topics for Yammer, which again they're calling Yammer, not Viva Engage. It's just basically any topics you've got, it can pop up as you're using Yammer, which was shown when Viva Topics came out and is only just now being released. And then new views in Viva Goals. So Viva Goals is where you can have objectives and key results for the whole organization rolled up and split down. And usefully, you can link something to that goal. So if you've already got your metrics in a spreadsheet, you can link Viva Goals to that spreadsheet, so it'll update automatically for you. So it's saying the new view offers a refreshed information hierarchy with flexible spreadsheet-like interface. Allow you to resize column as well as access key information like status, progress, commentary, check-in history, alignment, and other OKR details by clicking the cell. So it's not that Viva Goals isn't useful, it's good. Microsoft bought Ally.io, which was I think the leading platform for doing OKRs but in bringing it into Teams, it's then sort of made it complicated, because I guess either if you're a small business, you can do the same thing on a spreadsheet. A lot of organizations don't do OKRs very well anyway. They're so amorphous to be meaningless, which the OKR process helps you get down to something that's useful for someone. But you can probably do the same thing just in like cascaded spreadsheets. In a small organization, and in a big one, you've probably already got another solution that's doing that anyway. So SAP Success Factors springs to mind. If you've got Dynamics, that's got some HR bits in that probably slightly overlap with this. And so why would I want it in Teams? Well, there is a benefit of having stuff directly in Teams because it's more like front and center as you're doing your work. So that's good. It just seems odd that they've not integrated back with the other products that they've got in their own ecosystem, or had like a link in with SAP Success Factors potentially to just show that in Teams through Viva Goals. But maybe that's coming. Who knows? But yeah, seemingly they're now going back to a spreadsheet-like view, because that's how people like to see stuff. And so I guess people are used to just doing goals and things in spreadsheets, which you could probably do already. If you want more help getting the most out of Microsoft 365 or converting whatever Microsoft are doing into something useful for your organization, then that's what I do. I help people save time at work. And if you're at a total organization level, I help your people be more efficient so they can increase sales and you can increase well-being. If you want more help doing that, then you can book a call directly using a link in the description below. I can help you get your next best step towards modern working. If you just want some more information, we've got a couple of free courses that are linked in the description below, so go and check those out. Thanks for watching so far. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up before you leave. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon if you haven't already. And if you really liked it, consider supporting the channel by using super thanks or the buy me a beer button in the description below. Thanks for watching so far. See you in the next one.